All right, guys, today we are taking a look at the B&T GHM9 SD. Whoops. So guys, this is the SD, or the integrally suppressed kind of system that is made by B&T and is available in a nice little package. Now, the GHM, for those who don't know, stands for the grasshopper mouse. And grasshopper mouse is a carnivorous mammal or rodent that absolutely enjoys and specializes in feasting on, well, scorpions. So whenever the guys over at B&T were coming up with the name, they actually joked and called it the grasshopper mouse because it ate up the scorpion, which was at the time its direct competitor. And the name just kind of stuck. Now, we're not going to take it apart because YouTube doesn't like that, but if we look directly under the receiver here, there is actually a little bitty inscription or drawing of the grasshopper mouse. So that's pretty neat and clever. But the GHM9 SD is now on its third generation, and the things that have changed and what you need to be aware of is in the first generation of the GHM9, it had a lot of problems feeding hollow points. It was only compatible with B&T magazines. They didn't have the additional support of the APC9 Pro lowers yet, and it had a fixed grip, meaning it was a kind of monolithic design for the lower receiver, which is not a receiver, it's just a lower. There's no serialization on it, so you weren't able to change that out. When they went to the Gen 2, they made a removable grip and replaced it with an AR style format so that you can use whatever flavor of AR grip you want to on your PCC, which is a good thing. Well, there's nothing wrong with this grip. There are grip preferences that I already have personally as myself. And with the Gen 2, they also fixed the feed ramp issues, so it was able to support hollow points a little bit better since they had a lot of issues on the Gen 1. But with that feed issue change, they also went ahead and support the APC9 lowers, which means that if you wanted to go ahead and use, like we are here, a Glock magazine format, or a SIG P320 format, or a Walther P99 format, or you want to go with the traditional B&T format, you can do all of these things. And with the support of third-party or aftermarket lowers, you can actually even use Scorpion magazines if you want to go for the lulls of the irony, right? But nevertheless, the GHM9 SD Gen 3 will only ship currently with the Glock lower, which a lot of people seem to prefer. It's not my preference when it comes to aesthetics because I just don't like the way it sits at that angle. And, you know, honestly, you're getting this gun because of the cool factor, right? It looks freaking cool. Now, don't get me wrong. An MP5 looks equally cool. In fact, I think it looks better. But man, even this, I know it's integrally suppressed and it's a custom system, but nobody likes the way the Scorpion looks. Even people who own Scorpions will tell you they don't like the way they look. Now, this system is configured as a pistol, and what we are running is the telescopic brace from B&T. This is kind of where things get interesting. If we look from a total value and a total package standpoint, an MP5 rather from HK, the SP5 variant, is going to run you anywhere from $2,600 all the way up to $3,500, depending on when you buy in, and that's just the gun. That doesn't include the suppressor, the brace, or the stock, or the SBR stamp, depending on how you want to go. If we look at the CZ Scorpion, those go around $600 for certain ones now. If you want to go with an SBR with an included suppressor, I believe the last price I saw was around $1,750 to $1,776 was the number that was there. However, that's not for the integral version that's made by Innovative Arms. That's just for a suppressor that's removable, and it is a CZ variant. In fact, I believe it's AB Suppressors who makes the suppressor for that, so I'm sure it sounds fantastic. But stay tuned for another video featuring the AB Suppressor F4L, which is their 9mm can. But for today, what we're taking a look at is where does this fall in the value standpoint? Now, if you were to just buy a GHM9 today, and you know, we're talking, we just got done with Black Friday, there's still some sales floating around, you can actually get the base GHM9 in a Gen 2 configuration for around $1,000. And when we put that in the price categories of what it competes with, we're looking at things like the CMMG Banshee, which has the radial delayed blowback, which is different from the MP5, which has the roller delayed blowback, but it also puts you in the same category again as the CZ Scorpion. And when we kind of compare the two as a base, you're still getting a lot better gun from the GHM9, in my opinion. Now, a lot of things that you have to consider when we're talking about a direct blowback system, especially for 9mm, which I understand, fanboys, I'm not complaining about the recoil, but you have to understand that direct blowback 9mm, it's just not comfortable. And when you run it full auto, it's extremely uncomfortable. But what they've done in the GHM9 is you have your 2 recoil springs that run in the back. And if you're concerned about the difference between the APC9 and the GHM9, when we take this system apart, which we can't do on camera, but when we take the back of the receiver off, or the back of the receiver, we have 2 recoil springs that will actually shoot out. On the APC9, they're captured. So that's one of the differences. The other difference is in the recoil mitigation system, because this is a very heavy bolt inside this gun, or a very heavy bolt. It has a hydraulic buffer system that helps capture some of that recoil impulse and slow the bolt down as it comes back before the recoil rods do its thing and shift it back into the forward position, loading the next round and making the gun cycle. Now, on the GHM9, what they've done is they've put the hydraulic buffer directly onto the actual bolt. What that does effectively, however, is it increases the bolt weight, which is going to make a little bit extra recoil felt. When we compare it to the APC9 Pro, because that's what a lot of people will compare it to, the actual back of the gun where the receiver plate connects is where they've put that hydraulic buffer, so that when the bolt comes to the rear position, it slows down against that buffer, and then the buffer helps with the recoil springs to be able to push the bolt forward. So it's less weight on the bolts, and you get effectively the same recoil mitigation. Now, having shot this for just under 100 rounds at this point right now, I can tell you that the recoil is very tame. It's easy to stay on target. I was able to run the plates. I was able to just annihilate the center mass of the T-zone target. Of course, we're only about 10 to 15 yards, so that's easy game for anybody. But the recoil didn't feel jumpy at all. And that's coming from someone who primarily runs the MP5. But there is something that is special about a roller delayed system that's just unmatched. So when we come to think about what the best recoiling system is for the mitigation on a 9mm PCC, the MP5 is still the king, and it probably will never be beat unless it's by another roller delayed blowback or a roller delayed system. However, B&T does a fantastic job of that mitigation with their hydraulic buffer system, and I do applaud them for that. Now, another reason that this one particularly may be running a little bit softer is the SD system, and I want to talk about it just a little bit now that it's cooled off. Now, the SD system is a true SD variant, which SD is a German word that I don't remember off the top of my head. You can look that up if you really want to know. But what it means is that the actual suppressor, that is very long on threading, goes directly over the entire barrel. So it kind of looks like a Stalingrad grenade from Germany. But on the barrel itself, which we can't see on camera, but it actually has little porting, and I'll get some B-roll and show it now, of the actual barrel is ported at the base so that it releases gas from those 115 grain bullets to bring the velocity down to around the 1,050 or less feet per second, which keeps it, subsonic, which makes it nicer to hear. And then when we look at this, you're noticing that the suppressor actually threads directly over the barrel all the way to the back, which traps in that gas. Now, the other neat thing is that it is a RBS, reduced blowback system, and so it actually has porting all around the end cap, so additional gas flow will be able to break out, which is going to mean that the gun's going to run a little bit cleaner. Now, of course, 115 grain ammunition is not exactly a clean, especially when it's Winchester white box that we're running, but it's there, and it's going to help in the long run to keep the gun a little bit cleaner. Now, going to the back side of the gun, this is where things get expensive. So this is their telescopic brace that is made directly by B&T, and on it we have the Gearhead Works Mod 1, not the Mod 1C. I don't know if that's completely compatible, but this is the Mod 1. And yes, it is a brace. We're able to open it up, put our arm in, and it fits in the right spot, which means we're not going too far back. It is at the proper length of pull. But nevertheless, this is where things get expensive. And when you look at B&T, you'll learn that B&T is kind of like HK. They're really proud of their accessories, and they're kind of proprietary. So we can't just go out and put almost anything on here. A3 Tactical makes some stuff, but it's not that much better pricing. So if it was me again, I would still just go back and get the BT. But if we go with the B&T telescopic brace, just the brace adapter itself will cost you about $450 to $550. And believe it or not, they're in such a limited availability. They're sold out pretty much everywhere. Then you got to still add your Gearhead Works Mod 1, and that's going to set you back, if you want the FDE, about another $160. So all in, you're just over $600 just in your brace setup. However, it does have one saving grace to this. When I go to SBR it, I simply remove this Gearhead Works adapter from it. I put a stock butt plate on there, and then these locking rails that are a little bit lengthened, I'm able to replace them with a shorter variant that lets me go to the third telescopic position, and now I'm in SBR configuration, and it only cost me another $100. So the buy-in's already there when you do the brace, and I don't have to worry about a stamp, and while I do wait on the stamp when I do it later on, I'm actually good to go. So that's kind of a neat factor, and it is very fast to be able to deploy and conceal. And other things that make this pretty unique and special when we talk about in comparison to things like the Scorpion or the MP5 is the lower. And the lower is actually able to receive standard AR triggers so that we're not having to buy a different type of lower for like the HK and then get that really expensive Timney trigger. Or with the CZ Scorpion, you have to get that really expensive Timney trigger. There's all the options that you would have for a traditional AR-15. So if I wanted to put a Geisley in this, or if I wanted to put a LaRue in this, it's as simple as dropping it in. Now, if you change to the aluminum variant, because they do make an aluminum version of this in a Pro Lower, you are going to be a little bit more limited because you need the longer roll pins. However, in this configuration we have it now, it's pretty easy to be able to just drop in a trigger and put it there. However, what I do want to say is I don't think I need to. The trigger pull on this is maybe 4.5 pounds. You've got a very clean take up. It's 2-stage. We hit that glass wall and we push through. And it might be about 4 or 5, it might be 5 pounds. So we're gonna go back and we're gonna release. You have a very audible reset. And again, a nice crisp pull. So it's not hard to enjoy this trigger because it's not designed like the MP5 trigger, which is just kind of a mushy thing, or the CZ Scorpion, which unless you do the Timney upgrade, which is on this one, that trigger is absolute garbage. So that's a benefit, and it will save you some money in the grand scheme of things. Now for optics, everyone seems to run, for some reason, the Acro P2. I'm not bougie enough for that quite yet, so I am running one of the knockoff Acros, but at least mine is made from Griffin Armament. Now I'll probably do a full review on this red dot and compare it to some of the other knockoff Acros at a later time, and I'll actually probably end up upgrading myself to the Acro P2 that's in the FDE coloration with the B&T mount, which is made from Arasaka. But for now, I can say it's actually a good fit. It has rapid acquisition. I had no issues zeroing the dot, and I've been pretty happy with this so far. So kudos to you, Griffin, for that. Now, last thing we'll cover is the charging handle and reciprocation. Now, I saw some feedback out there that the Gen 3 version was non-reciprocating. However, we saw from footage and reality of using it, ours does reciprocate. It is completely attached to the bolt. Now, if you got this version, which is the SD version, they did include the actual flip charging handle, so it's folding automatically. That's a $100 upgrade if you were to do that after the fact, but there is one caveat. You will only be able to use this on the left side of the gun. They do not have the ability to put it on the right side. So, kind of buyer beware going into that, right? All right, and lastly, the entire package comes in one nice backpack that includes things like a cleaning kit, a manual, a patch, a sticker, because I know everyone loves those these days. You get the suppressor, which is a separate serial number from your actual gun, so you're able to go ahead and take your gun home, and you can get a faux suppressor that drops in and screws, or it actually has a washer that goes directly over the porting so that you can shoot it as is with Ear Pro without the worry of waiting on the suppressor, because we all know, the ATF's 90 days has turned into about a year right now, but hopefully we see some faster turnaround times. So without further ado, let's give it a couple more shots and see how we do. The GHM9 SD Grasshopper mouse is supposed to be the Scorpion Eater, but what I wanted to show you guys today is how it compares to two guns. One, which is supposed to be its direct competitor. From a price point it kind of is, and then two, from what it really is a comparator to, which is the H&K MP5. So we've got our sound signature mic set up in a position so we can capture some great suppressed audio. It's been tuned previously, so we're going to leave it as is, and we're going to just kind of we're going to do some dirt, we're going to do some plates. We'll let all the audio speak for itself. So this is the GHM9 SD, and yes, this is 115 grain ammunition. All right. Now let's go into the dirt so that we can hear what it sounds like without all of the steel in the background. Okay, let's change guns and see. Here we go. right, and now we're just going to go directly into the dirt. So immediately, I do notice that you get more port pop from the GHM SD simply because it's just got a lot of gas coming out, even though it's the reduced blowback system suppressor, the RBS on the Gen 3 model. It still sounds great, and also considering we're running 115 grain ammunition, I think that is fantastic. Now, let's compare it to what it should be compared to, the CZ Scorpion, but with a little twist. The one that we're about to feature has an integrally suppressed barrel from Innovative Arms that is basically custom fit to run this stuff. So if there was any true competitor to the GHM9 SD, shouldn't it be the Scorpion SD? Let's see. So now we have the Innovative Arms SD variant of the CZ Scorpion. So it is an integrally suppressed system, just like the GHM9 SD from B&T. So this is the target of what I believe is actually when they say the Scorpion Killer. So it's more of an apples to apples comparison, even though this probably costs a few $100s now more. And it is an SBR, so it's a 2-stamp configuration. But let's go ahead and see how we can make this thing run. It's a K variant, and we're also running that same 115 grain ammunition. Whew, safety's long. Okay, go into some dirt if I got any left. And that was it. So, first thoughts are, it's not as quiet as I remember it. It's actually a little bit louder than the GHM9 SD, which makes me very happy. Because where this is an integrally built system, as well as the GH9 SD, the GHM9 SD system is actually user serviceable, so I can clean the entire thing. And with the RBS, or the reduced blowback system on the suppressor, I don't have to worry about all that gas getting back into the gun, gunking it up. So when I'm running the 115s, it's not going to be as gunky as it would if I was running 150s or something else. All right, guys, so it's been a lot of fun running the GHM9 SD, and I'm pretty happy that I have this in my arsenal. It's been on my want list for a little while after I saw some other videos coming out that made it just sound like a pellet gun. Now, I will say the RBS suppressor is a little bit louder than I wanted it to be. I will say that from the ejection port here, you do get a little more port pop than I'd want it to be. But honestly, with 115 grain ammunition, no ear pro, I'm still comfortable shooting it for lots and lots of ammunition without any problems. And it's a lot easier to shoot and acquire that 115 than it is the 150 and the 147 subsonic ammo that I need to run with the MP5 in order to get that same hearing safe level of sensation. But outside of that, guys, I was impressed. My original thoughts of the GHM9 were a little bit skewed. I was one of those folks who believed it was the poor man's APC-9, but what really it was is that the APC-9 and the APC-9 Pro did all the footwork for what would become the GHM9, and as a result, the R&D was already paid for, and so they were able to reduce the cost of the GHM9 without reducing the quality. Because I've always heard about this Swiss quality, and I have to say I'm pretty impressed. It's up there and lives up to its reputation. But all in all, guys, it's not the poor man's variant. If anything, it's the budget-friendly variant. And on my channel, we've talked a lot about what is and is not budget-friendly. And this really is your budget-friendly SD subgun, or, you know, semi-automatic AR pistol style. And if you're in the market for a SD variant of a gun, you can find these when they got availability, because it comes in limited wave shipments for around $2,250 to $2,500. Now, it doesn't include your brace. When you factor all that in, you're just over $3,200 probably. Now, I will say that brings me to the last and final closing point on this. We've already talked about the trigger being so adaptable, and we've talked about the system in general. But if you buy into the GHM9 and you just get the base variant for around $1,000 on sale, you have a lot of options ahead of you. You simply take off 2 screws and the handguard comes off, vice it up, you're able to pull the barrel out, and they sell adapter kits to be able to make this a very modular system to whatever you want it to be. So you can get a 16-inch barrel, you can get a 10-inch barrel, you can get an 8-inch barrel, you can get the subcompact 3.7-inch barrel or the 4.2-inch barrel that has the SD kit, like you see here. Now, this is SD from the factory, but they do make an SD kit if you already own a GHM and you want to go ahead and upgrade. Now, if you're stuck with a Gen 1 lower, you can just upgrade to a Gen 3 lower directly from the manufacturer for around $420. And I think it's pretty neat that this is all being provided by B&T. You're not having to search aftermarket parts. They are providing all of this. And if you look inside the manual, which you can Google, and I'll leave a link for it in the description, you can see just how many options are available for this directly from B&T. And I kind of like that because now I'm not finding out, is this supported or is it not? Everything is in one place. So if you're just a budget option SD lover and you really want to get into a 115 grain shooter that's nice and quiet, I highly recommend it. If you have any questions, guys, let me know. And until next time, stay quiet.